Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second Maritime Peplink Certified Engineer training session. My name's Sam Norris, and we'll be getting underway now. So last Friday, we covered selecting the equipment. If you missed Friday's session, you can watch it now. The link is on the forum, and it also got sent out in an email earlier today. So today we're going to cover the physical installation of the equipment on board. When installing on board, we have four main areas of consideration: the antenna location, the antenna cables, router location, and lightning protection and grounding. Selecting antenna cables is important. There are many different types of coaxial cable available with varying specifications. When selecting a cable, you need to know that it is going to be fit for purpose. The longer the cable run, the larger the coaxial cable you're going to need to maintain the signal quality. Yachts can be a magnet for lightning, especially catamarans. The grounding systems on board your vessel should already exist, and you need to figure out how to join it onto that. So we're going to start off with a question here. For a yacht deployment with a 6 dBi gain antenna at 3,500 megahertz with a 25 meter cable, which of the following cable types would be your best choice? Is it A, LMR 200, B, LMR 2400, C, LMR 400, or D, LMR 600? Okay, so everyone's saying C and D or D. So if we run it through a calculator here, let's look at LMR 200 first. So LMR 200 is going to give quite a high loss over 25 meters. So let's now try it with LMR 600. So you can see that the loss is a lot less when using LMR 600. So the answer is D. The Puma 401 is a new antenna from Peplink. It's Peplink's new 4x4 omnidirectional antenna. It features up to 6 dBi of gain, 4x4 MIMO, GPS, and it's 5G ready. It's a wideband antenna covering 698 through to 3,800 megahertz. One antenna supports up to 2 Category 12 modems or 1 Category 18 modem. So for example, an HD4 MBX Category 12 would require 2 of these antennas, but the Category 18 version would require 4 of these antennas. So where are some of the key features in the specification sheet? So you'll need to check the frequencies which the antenna covers. You'll also need to take into account the loss on the antenna cables, which is supplied with the antennas. So another question: directional antennas are recommended for large cruise ships and tanker ships. Is this statement A, true, or B, false? Okay, so the answer is B, false. So the yacht Latitude, they had a BR1 Mark II. It was an LTEA version, which supported 4G in Europe and USA, but this wasn't enough. They were suffering from brief drops in disconnection and connectivity due to relying on a single cellular model. This install has the router located directly beneath the antennas, which allows for a very short cable run. We also implemented speed fusion, which allowed for brief cellular outages to be no longer noticed by the end user. So with the final setup on there, they were able to get 10 megabytes per second upload and download per modem at 50 kilometers offshore. Peplink has a full range of SD switches, starting with 8-port switches, going all the way up to 48-port. They're split into two families, the SD switch and the SD switch rugged. This allows you to have a full Peplink installation from your data center to the vessel, throughout the vessel, and then delivered to the clients via our Wi-Fi access points. The 16-port SD switch is a new addition to our range. It features 16 gigabit Ethernet ports, 8 of which are PoE+, and 2 SFP ports. The power input is 12 to 56 volts DC via the terminal blocks or through the 54 volt PSU supplied with it, which can be powered by 100 to 240 volts. This model features some unique functions, including LAN bypass and combo port. The LAN bypass means that if the switch loses power, LAN ports 1 and 2 will be bridged, meaning that devices connected 1 and 2 can still communicate. This is very helpful if you have switches which are daisy chained. The rugged switches have been designed to be installed in demanding environments. Its higher operating temperature range means it is ready to be used in machinery spaces. Our SD switch range fits into our In-Control 2 environment, allowing for easy cloud management. The out-of-band management allows you to use a USB modem to remotely access the switch via In-Control 2 if the switch was to lose connectivity. So this is our current SD switch rugged family. Each one has some slightly different features. For example, the 24-port version has an SFP plus port, while the other two models just have SFP ports. However, they all have one thing in common, the ability to be powered by 12 to 56 volts DC. This makes them very well suited for the maritime market. Question time. Which of the following statements is true about the 8-port SD switch? A, it supports 2 times 10 gigabits SFP simultaneous connections. B, it can stabilize the power supply. C, it offers 240 watts of PoE power budget. Or D, it can apply LAN bypass on the network. Okay, so the answer is C. The 8-port SD switch rugged offers 240 watts of PoE power budget. The LAN bypass, which is D there, that is on the 16-port SD rugged switch. And the SFP port is just an SFP port. It's not a SFP plus 10 gig port. Our range of access points. This allows you to deliver connectivity all the way to your client's devices. We have another product reveal here today. This is our new AP1 Enterprise AX. It supports simultaneous 802.1 AC-AX-B GN and 802.11 AC-AX-ANN. It has 4x4 MIMO, which allows data transfer rates up to 1,147 megabits per second on 2.4 gigahertz and 2,402 megabits per second on 5 gigahertz. Transmit power is 17 dBm on both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and it can be powered by the 12 volt input, 2.5 amp DC, or by 802.80 PoE. So what are the reasons for deploying Peplink AP access points with Peplink routers? Is it A, the user can use in-control to monitor and access the access points? Is it B, user can control the AP1s with a balanced onboard AP controller? C, Peplink access points can power up the Peplink router? Or D, the data rate of both the APO and the router are improved? So the answer is A and B. You can use in-control 2 to access and monitor the access points. And you can also use the onboard controller. So you don't have to have a separate Wi-Fi access point controller on board. This can all be done within the router. Next, we're going to look at the antenna and router location. So if we're installing on a 45-meter sailing yacht and they want to take advantage of 4 cellular connections, would you install an HD4 below decks and run coaxial cable up to the mast all the way to the antennas, or would you use a balanced 580 and 2 HD2 domes? What would be the pros and cons of each one of these installs? Okay, so on install 1, some of the pros are that you're going to have easy access to the SIM cards. The coaxial cables could already exist. You might need to run some additional ones if you're using 4 cellular modems. And you'll get the high gain antennas, which will be up the mast. So the cons are that you've got long antenna runs. So the coaxial cables are going to be very long, and you're going to get large signal loss on the antenna cables. So on install 2, you know, virtually 0 signal loss using the HD domes. You're going to have easy access to this SIM cards if you use SIM injector. So obviously if the SIMs are actually located in the domes, it's going to be very hard to access them. So some of the cons are you're going to have multiple routers to manage. An additional switch will be required to split HD2 into individual modems. And yeah, the con will be hard to access SIMs if the SIM injector is not used. You might also have to run network cable up the mast if this does not already exist. Okay, so for scenario 2, we're going to look at a motor yacht. So with install 1, the router is located below the decks with long coaxial cable runs, and with install 2, the router is located near the antennas. What are the pros and cons of 1 versus 2? So on install 1, you've got an HD4 NBX, which is located in the rack. You're going to have long coaxial cable runs to the mast and high gain antennas installed up the mast. So you're going to have easy access to the SIM cards again, but some of the cons are massive loss on the antenna cable. So sometimes the loss can even cancel out the gain of the antenna. So, I mean, it's almost not even worth it having the antenna up there. Yeah, and lots of coaxial cable required. Install 2. So same equipment in that, but the MBX is going to be located up the mast. So what this means is you're going to have very little loss on the cables due to very short coaxial cable runs. A single network cable is required from the mast to the main rack, so you don't have to run lots of coaxial cable there. Some of the cons is that power will be required within the mast. Sometimes this is already present, but if it's not, you'll need to organize this. And the SIM cards are not going to be so easy to access. But again, this can be overcome by using the SIM injector. Just got some questions there about the previous installs. So do you need 2 SIM injectors for 2 HD2 domes? No, you don't. You can run 2 domes off 1 SIM injector. You don't need to have 1 SIM injector dedicated per modem. per router. Okay, question time. If an HD4 MBX is installed in a hard to access location, which one of the following products is going to complement the install? Is it an SD switch, InControl 2, SIM injector, or SpeedFusion Cloud? Okay, very good. Everyone's getting that one right. So the answer is C, SIM injector. So the SIM injector will allow you to remotely put the SIM cards on the router, and you don't have to go to the router every time to change the SIM cards. So we're going to look at scenario C here now. So this is an install on a much larger vessel. So would you install two HD4s below decks or an EPX up near the antennas? So what are the pros and cons of these different installs? So on install 1, you can have easy access to the SIM cards, but it's going to be a long coaxial cable run up to the mast. I mean, this one we're talking about using passive splitters and things like that. So I mean, that's really going to degrade the signal. So on install 2, if you put an EPX up the mast, it's going to be located near the antennas, nice short cable runs, and then a fiber run between the mast and the main rack. So you won't have a bottleneck in your network. So it's very short antenna runs. It'll be easy to change the modems and the antenna configuration in the future as technology advances, because the cable runs will be nice and short. So you can reduce the antenna footprint by using 4x4 MIMO antennas. So that would mean that you'd need one antenna per Cat18 modem, or one antenna would also be one 4x4 antenna would also do 2 category 12 or below modems. So some of the cons of that would be that the antennas might not be long-range marine antennas. So another thing is that the SIM cards might not be so easy to access. Currently, the EPX doesn't have support for Fusion SIM or remote SIM, but it will do in the near future, and this will be introduced on the new Flex modules. Okay, so next thing we're going to look at is antenna placement. So antenna placement is important. They should be placed up as high as possible. This helps to improve the line of sight over the horizon. On vessels, it is near impossible to avoid all blockages. If you've got 2 antennas, 50 centimeters either side of, say, a 20 centimeters diameter mast, that would be sufficient. However, if you have antennas located either side of a much larger mast, then this will cause a blockage and should be avoided. Antennas should be at least 50 centimeters apart. So on 1800 megahertz, that's how far apart they need to be at a minimum. If you're expecting to use the bands around 900 megahertz, they should be at least 90 centimeters apart. So the best thing to do is just aim to go at least 90 centimeters apart on each antenna. So by locating the antennas apart from each other, what we're trying to do is create diversity paths between the antennas and cellular masts. For short applications, diversity paths are usually created by bouncing off the surroundings. At sea, your surroundings are much more uniform. So by using vertical separation, you're able to create different paths by bouncing the signal off the sea. So antenna selection. So omni versus directional. Omnidirectional antennas give you a 360-degree view of the surrounding RF environment. Think about the pattern like a donut. A directional antenna is designed to be pointed in a particular direction. Think about this RF pattern more like a cone. With an omnidirectional antenna, when the gain is increased, the beam width is reduced. Think of it like squashing the donut down. So you should get a longer range, but what this is going to do is make your setup more susceptible to loss of signal if the vessel is rolling. So you can kind of see that in the bottom right image there. It's showing how the beam width kind of gets squished down and extended further out. It will give you longer range, but it's not going to be as wide on the beam width. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is power dividers and power splitters. So a lot of people ask me if it's okay to use these. So power dividers do exactly that. They divide the power. If you have an HD4 with 2 antennas and 2 4-in, 1-out power dividers, you're going to be getting less than 25% received signal on each modem. Now think about how that will affect your range at sea. I've seen vessels which were using 2 antennas and power dividers on an HD4. They're only getting about 4 miles offshore before losing connectivity. When we removed the power dividers and installed antennas, additional antennas, the vessel was easily able to get 20 miles offshore and still remain connected. So let's summarize some of the key factors which need to be taken care of to create a successful install. So on the cabling, you want to make sure that you've got no splitters, nice short cable runs, high quality cables that are fit for the purpose, and as few connectors as possible. Of course, you're going to have some connectors there, but if you can avoid having multiple adapters and things like that, that's much better. So for the antennas, you want good antenna placement, 360-degree unobstructed view of the horizon, and a great antenna selection also helps as well. And for the grounding, you want to make sure that your equipment is grounded. This helps protect it from lightning and can also help increase signal strength. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's session. So now we're going to go through some questions and answers. There have been a few there, so if I'm just going to go through the questions and answers now. Okay, so we've got one here. Do you need multiple Ethernet cables to access the 8 SIMs and the SIM injector? You'll need one Ethernet cable for each dome you have, not one for each SIM card. So that'll be, if you have 2 HT2 domes up the mast, you'll need two Ethernet cables. Okay, with the recording, so we're recording these. They're available on YouTube. I don't know if we've got them available for download. I'll have to check with Cassie on that. John is asking, can you have a copy of the UBR datasheet? Yes, if you send us an email at maritime@peplink.com, I will send you the datasheet across. And also, for people asking about the price and the availability of the equipment, the AP1 AX, that should be available in start of Q3, same as the UBR Rugged. For the pricing, if you want the pricing for any equipment, please, if you're a Peplink partner, you can contact your account manager. And if you're an end client, you can contact your Peplink partner and they will be able to give you the prices for the equipment. Rob is asking, does LAN failover on the SD Rugged 16-port switch activate if the switch loses power, or is it just a software problem? What it's designed for is if the switch loses power, the communication will still flow through it between 2 ports. So it was actually designed for trains where they have a switch in each carriage. And what it would mean is if you can have a switch in each carriage and that daisy chain between each other, and if any one of those switches lost power for any reason, the rest of the train would still be able to communicate through that switch, even though that switch is not powered up. So that was what it was originally designed for, and that's how it works. If the switch goes completely offline, then it'll act like the switch isn't there. So Eric's saying about the 20 lines mile of coverage. Is it being tested or is it an average? I'm concerned about the line of sight, I think, and the TX delay because of the distance. So range at sea depends on your location as well. It really depends on if the cellular networks in the area are pointed out to sea to give you coverage out there. I personally have seen vessels connected at 70 kilometres offshore. So 70 kilometres, I think that's about 35 miles. We're only getting about a megabyte or two of throughput, but at that range, I wouldn't expect any more. I've seen at 40 kilometres, I have seen I've seen 20 megabytes throughput on an MBX through SpeedFusion. It all depends on how you've got your system set up with your antennas, nice short cable runs and things like that. So yeah, it also really depends on the location and the cellular networks actually being able to give you that throughput at that range. So how many HD domes can be maximum supported by one SIM injector when using an additional switch? So the one SIM injector has 8 SIM slots in it. It can support up to 8 HD1 domes. Theoretically, it can support 8 individual devices. So one device per SIM card. Obviously, yes, you'd need additional switches and things like that for that. So with the antenna, the Puma 401, it is actually the same as the antenna 107. We have just updated the name of it. So that's to fit in with our new naming policies for our antennas. So regarding the certification exam, is it still need one PC exam or will it be split into several ones or in the future? So the PCE exam, the existing one, will still remain as a single exam. The maritime one will be an independent exam. It won't be split into multiple maritime exams. It will just be one maritime exam. But then we will also be doing other verticals like transportation and MSP. They will also have their own exams. Again, it'll just be one exam. It won't be split into multiple ones, but they will be their own separate exams. So minimum antenna spacing of 50 centimeters for the MIMO antenna on the same modem. Is this on the same antenna connected to different modems? Yeah, so ultimately you want to have them separated as much as possible. So if you've got multiple, if you have an HD4, what you can do is you can cross connect the antennas if you're using a 4x4 antenna. Okay, so can the dome be used without the SIM injector? Yes, it can. The domes do have their own SIM slots inside the dome. So you can physically put a SIM card inside the dome. And it just means it's very hard to access it to change it. You can use both the inbuilt SIM card, or the SIM card you've physically installed in it, and the SIM injector. You can utilize them at the same time. You can switch between them as such. So yeah. And so what is the difference between the main and auxiliary connections on the modem? So the main connection is what gives you your, obviously your main connection. And then the auxiliary is for additional frequency connections. So if you're looking at the category 6 and category 12 modems when they're connected, you'll notice that quite often it pops up beside that it's connected on LTE-A. And if you go into this details of that modem, you'll see it listed that it's connected to multiple frequencies at the same time. Okay, so what Peplink models are compatible with the SIM injector at the moment? Is it only the domes? No, it's not only the domes. We also have the MBX is fully compatible with it. The Speed Fusion engines and the Speed Fusion cams. The UBR rugged is also compatible with it. HD2 minis are going to be compatible with it for the new latest firmware version. So not any of the old existing ones, they won't be supported by it, but the new hardware version will be supported by it. The HD2 IP67 is also supporting it. How do we follow the training for the PC exam in order to pass it before the 18th? Is there a link to download the webinars? No, there won't be a link to download the webinars before they take place. Just it's not possible. So once they've taken place, we will upload the videos within a day or two, and then you can watch them at your own time. So we're not making the exam available until after the 18th, so that it gives everyone a chance to attend all the webinars and gain the knowledge for that, and then you can go and partake in the exam. So for the cables to connect to the main auxiliary, no difference to which two cables connect, assuming 2x2 MIMO. Yeah, so what you want to do is you really do want to have them both connected if possible. What you don't want to do is connect like the main to an external antenna, and then the auxiliary one have just a little stubby connected to it and have that locked inside the cupboard. That's not really that's not a good way to do it. So yeah, you really want them both connected to the same type of antenna. Yeah. Okay, are the new antennas and domes 5G ready? The antennas are 5G ready, but the domes are not 5G ready. So the domes are category, obviously we have the category 18 HD1 dome, and then we have the HD2 dome in category 12 and category 6 versions. So that they're a fixed version, they're not upgradable as such. So what is the recommended distance between the dome and the SIM injector? So the SIM injector is actually a PoE switch built into it as well. So it can power the dome. And the maximum distance on that Ethernet cable is actually 150 meters. So you don't have a minimum distance there, but the maximum distance is 150 meters. So Adam asked, do you need to achieve the PCE before taking the mPCE? Yes, that is correct. You need to do the PCE exam before you'll be able to undertake the mPCE exam. So John asks, is there a deadline for taking the maritime exam, or can we take it any time once it is available? Yes, you can take it any time once it's available. There isn't a deadline to take the exam, but it is free up until the end of June, I believe. I'll have to double check on that. So we're waiving the fee on that for a few months there. But no, there won't be a time limit on it. Once it's available, you'll be able to do it whenever you want. It will only remain valid for 2 years. So after 2 years, you will need to retake it though. So Daniel asks, when you use a SIM injector plus a dome, do you need a second cable to the LAN of the dome for the data, or is the SIM injector working as a smart switch with full throughput? So the switch, so the SIM injector acts as a switch. So you can have one cable going from your dome to your SIM injector, and then on the SIM injector it has 4 Ethernet ports. So you can connect one of those other Ethernet ports to the rest of your network. So it can act as a pass-through switch there. So you don't have to have 2 network cables going to the mast for a dome. It's just a single network cable per dome. So do the LAN ports on the HD4 series and Extreme series switches support link aggregation? On the HD4 MBX, we don't support it. I will have to double check on the switches and on the EPX as well. I'll have to double check on those ones for you, but I can get back to you with those details. So will the PCE exam be waived as well if we do not have the PCE? Yes, that is also waived as well. So you can do both exams for free. So the first attempt is free for both the PCE and the mPCE. So how do we prepare for the PCE? We've got a section on the forum which has some intensive training for the PCE. So if you go and have a look on the forum, you'll be able to view the previous webinars that we had about them. Cassie has put up the forum post in the chat there on the webinar chat. Is there a website where I can simulate the maritime exam? We will have a test selection of questions. I believe it's 5 questions long. So you can do a mock. Actually, no, sorry, we don't have that. That's for the PCE, we have that. For the maritime one, we haven't done that because we're doing this maritime PCE training. So this training should be sufficient to have you ready for the exam. Is it possible to have dislocated SIM injector from dome over the internet and have them connected via SpeedFusion? Yes, that is completely possible. So you can have the SIM injector located in an office or a data center or something like that, and the dome located on board. You will need a physical SIM card in the dome so that the dome can connect to the internet and acquire the SIM cards first, obviously. As the dome, the only options for internet on the dome is cellular. There's no Wi-Fi WAN or Ethernet WAN or anything like that. So it has to have a SIM card physically in there. Is there a length limitation on antenna length? What is the maximum recommended length? So ultimately with antenna length, you want them as short as possible. You need to do your calculations and figure out what your loss is going to be on it. But ultimately, if you're talking about an MBX category 18, it's much easier to run a power cable and a network cable up to somewhere that's closer to the mast than it is to run all those coax cables all the way back down to a technical space somewhere lower down. Is there further intention to have a Wi-Fi dome as well? I don't believe there is. Currently with the HD2 and HD1 dome, we will have, there's the 4 antennas inside it for cellular, and then there is the 1 antenna for the GPS, and there's just not enough room for anything else in there. So if we were to introduce Wi-Fi in there as well, we would be probably sacrificing some of the cellular or something like that. So Danny asked, so this is the maritime course, but do you need another certification first? Yes, that is correct. So if you view the first webinar, we have the PCE, which is like the first qualification to do, and then we've got additional training tracks which we are doing below that, which are like the maritime market and things like that as well. We'll also have MSP and transportation, other things like that as well. So is the HD2 dome have 2 different LTE-A modems, category 6 and category 12? Yes, so if you have a look at the spec sheet, you will see on there the different versions that are available and the different combinations of modems. There's a few different versions available. So is the exam free? When is the exam? And do you have a maritime book for the exam? So yes, the exam is free. It's free until the end of July. And the exam will be available after the 18th of May, after the last episode of our webinars, which is next Monday, is the last one. You don't have to book the exam as such. You have to sign up on our training portal, and then you can undertake the exam from there. So how can we configure the dome router plus SimBank to any inserted 8 different SIM countries, mobile operators, and regarding the different countries for roaming? Yeah, so this is, you can do it by disabling the roaming and it will just then use local SIM cards. So if you've got 8 SIM cards from different countries, it will just use the ones that aren't roaming. So Marcus asks, what is my experience using hybrid couplers instead of splitters dividers? I haven't used the hybrid couplers. I know you've talked about them a few times, but pretty much I've just avoided any of the kind of splitters or couplers or anything like that. I would like to know your experience in them though. So yeah. Okay, I think we are going to wrap it up there unless anyone else has got some more questions there. Okay, well, great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for attending. Our next session will be on Friday, which will be talking about optimizing the equipment. So that'll be covering things like In Control 2, Speed Fusion, and those kind of things that you use to make the system that much better. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and have a good week.